Top 10 Space Movies Judged by Actual Astronauts. I figure we would all be able to concur that a few films, particularly space motion pictures, go so a long ways past what is reasonably conceivable that they suspend conviction. However, as most of us have not been in space, it is, on occasion, difficult to tell what is truth and what is fiction. Which is the place our genuine space travelers come in. Chris Hadfield is a Canadian resigned space explorer, specialist, and previous Royal Canadian Air Force military pilot. He was the main Canadian to stroll in space, has flown 2 space shuttle missions and filled in as administrator of the International Space Station, ISS. Garrett Reisman, an American designer and previous NASA space explorer, was a reinforcement group part for Expedition 15 and joined Expedition 16 on board the International Space Station for a brief time frame before turning into an individual from Expedition 17. Nicole Stott is likewise an American architect and a resigned NASA space traveler. She filled in as a flight engineer on ISS Expedition 20 and Expedition 21 and was a mission specialist on STS-128 and STS-133. 10 Interstellar, 2014. Interstellar is a sci-fi epic, coordinated by Christopher Nolan and featuring Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway among others. Set in a future where a weak Earth puts mankind near the very edge of elimination, it sees a brave group of NASA researchers, architects and pilots endeavor to locate another tenable planet, through interstellar travel. But when a genuine space explorer says I'm befuddled, you know it's awful. Also, as per Hadfield, there simply isn't much else to state about this anecdotal understanding of what occurs in a dark gap. As nobody has really been in one and lived to tell the story, we just don't have the foggiest idea what precisely occurs as there. Reisman would like to think of the shelf tesseract isn't excessively good, yet he does in any case rate the film at 8 as they got a ton of the other logical realities, particularly around relativistic impacts, right. 9 Guardians of the Galaxy, 2014. See, any film with a talking raccoon is okay in my book, says Reisman. The scene above is pretty much comparable to a talking raccoon, however. Despite the fact that Star-Lord, Chris Pratt, is wearing a cap to shield himself from the impacts of the vacuum outside his shuttle, shouldn't something be said about the remainder of his body? While we as the watchers realize that it's anecdotal and exceptionally sensationalized to depict his generous love for Gamora, Zoe Saldana, it is as yet fascinating to hear our genuine space travelers' clarification of what might really transpire presented to a vacuum in this way. First up, barotrauma. This alludes to the gases inside your lungs and sinuses that will begin growing rapidly once presented to a vacuum, as there is not, at this point, any pneumatic force pushing against them. At that point, pressure disorder, otherwise called twists, endured by remote ocean jumpers who come up to the surface excessively fast, not permitting the gases inside and outside your body to adjust. Not great, clearly, but rather likewise not exactly as emotional and grisly as Arnold Schwarzenegger's depiction in Total Recall. 8 Total Recall, 1990. The 1990s, Total Recall was viewed as one of the best activity motion pictures of Arnold Schwarzenegger's vocation. It's additionally one of the more brilliant motion pictures that the entertainer was ever associated with. Right up till today, huge numbers of his fans are as yet pondering precisely how the film finished. Was Douglas Quaid, played by Schwarzenegger, really a spy who had bogus recollections of his life embedded? Or then again, is the majority of what we see all through the film simply the happening of the bogus memory that was implanted? Our space travelers, as one would expect, are less inspired by the complexities of the plot and unquestionably more worried about the functional and logical components of the film. The breaking protective cap, for instance. As indicated by Stott, protective caps are unmistakably more sturdy than we find in the clasp above. In spite of the fact that there are parts that might be broken by sharp bits of metal, for instance, visors are developed of entirely tough, solid polycarbonate that essentially doesn't break on sway. 7 Gravity, 2013. The entirety of our specialists concur that on the off chance that you need to realize what it resembles in space, there has never been a superior film than Gravity. The sights and sounds are precise and suggestive of precisely what she encountered on her space strolls. Stott reviews. The landscape, particularly in the initial scenes of the moderate turning Earth and shocking lighting, really gives you the crude feeling of how amazingly excellent it is up there, says Hadfield. Simply don't focus on what any of the space travelers are doing. Reisman concurs that, albeit perfectly shot, the film challenges the laws of material science. It manages space trash causing destruction on the global space station. Furthermore, indeed, properly enough, there is a great deal of stuff skimming up there. Be that as it may, as per Stott, each and every piece greater than a clench hand is followed by a researcher on Earth and a tremendous haze of garbage abruptly amazing the spacewalkers is simply unrealistic. During the scene where the two primary characters are making fixes to the Hubble telescope, Sandra's character delivers the ties, binds her to the robot arm and goes coasting off into space as though there is some outside power practiced upon her and not the gear. In another scene she snatches Clooney's tie and he discloses to her that she should release him to spare herself. Why? When she has halted his force, he wouldn't be going any place. Indeed, even the satellite zooming by at around 120 miles per hour is so distant from reality that our genuine space travelers simply giggle. Satellites travel at 5 miles for every second, multiple times quicker than a rifle slug. They would have in a real sense no an ideal opportunity to recognize what they are seeing. 6. Armageddon, 1998. A large portion of us, I think, would concur that this film a lot of falls into the anecdotal classification. It's pretty evident that quite a bit of what happens is complete gibberish. Hadfield calls it terrible comic. It's as terrible as any space film has ever been. It's simply atrocious. Stott, in any case, seen some recovering components. Particularly the pool scene above. As indicated by her, what you see on screen is essentially precisely what she herself experienced and recollects about preparing in NASA's enormous pool. At the point when you're preparing submerged, she says, you are encircled by well-being jumpers helping you with the gear and getting in and out of the pool. Fortunately, in space it's really simpler to move around. Although she concurs that the multi-day preparing is pretty much inconceivable, her sentiment is that NASA was simply attempting to acquaint the group with what it would feel like up in space. In this way the pool and T-38 planes, genuine space travelers experience similar cycles so as to figure out how to function complex frameworks in comparative conditions. 5. First Man, 2018. Before space travelers become space travelers, they ordinarily have some other specialized vocation. Frequently, they begin as aircraft testers, similar to the case with Neil Armstrong and his kindred team individuals. In the film, Armstrong is seen flying a X-15. Nothing amiss with that. The portrayal, however, is defective. As per Hadfield, a X-15's vibrations would be so minute as to be impalpable. In the event that your airplane is shaking to the degree this one is, there must be something incorrectly. And afterward, by one way or another, for some mysterious explanation, everything abruptly goes dead calm. Where did all that sound vanish to? Even the sky as observed through the airplane's windows is all off base. In actuality, the higher you go, the more obscure it gets. In the film, the shade of the sky goes from sky blue to light blue and afterward out of nowhere goes to black. But the most disillusioning thing about the film, Hadfield says, is the morose environment and absence of delight around the mission. Being a space explorer is an incredible experience, and despite the fact that the individuals from the group are for the most part mindful of the reality and expected perils of the circumstance, they are additionally awed and excited at the remote chance of being in space. 4 Passengers, 2016. How would you make gravity if there's no planet around? As indicated by our specialists, turning the shuttle you're going in will make a gravity-like pseudo-power, divergent power, to be definite. Much like the clothes washer rides at carnivals, the turning impacts a power that pushes objects, counting individuals, against the external edges of the vehicle. The pool scene in Passengers is an incredible visual portrayal of what might befall the water once the boat has quit turning and the divergent power has consequently gone. Not that that is probably going to occur, as indicated by Hadfield. It would take an incredible outside power, or brakes, to stop the movement of such an immense vehicle in space. The other hiccup here is that the power would not mysteriously return and send everything smashing down like in the film. To get such a monstrous metal structure turning again would take impressive time and effort. But what happens when the globules of water gather in a major mass is practical and precisely what befalls beads of water in the worldwide space station. Indeed, even tears, as per Stott. 3. The Martian, 2015, Reisman rates this film at a 9 on the grounds that other than the possibility that penetrating the glove of your spacesuit will make it act like a fly pack and impel you around space like Iron Man, the film is pretty accurate. Hadfield opposes this idea. As indicated by him, there are a few logical misnomers. For one, Matt Damon's character, Mark Watney, would not be very as buff as he is in the film. The red planet's gravity is just about 38% of the Earth's. Imprint would in this way just weigh around 33% of his depicted weight. The environment is additionally unbelievably slim on Mars. You would need to climb Everest multiple times to get to the tallness where the air is similarly as slight on Earth. What's more, when you realize that, a considerable lot of the scenes outside the spaceship become problematic. The thought behind Watney developing his own yield of potatoes on Mars isn't a long way from reality, however. Everything he requires is supplement-rich soil, which he reproduces utilizing his own fertilizer, along with warmth, water and oxygen. Furthermore, these can be made with generally basic synthetic responses utilizing the spaceship's provisions, something each space traveler is completely prepared in. 2001, A Space Odyssey, 1968, Reisman and Hadfield both truly love this film, and even the science holds up truly well. To put it plainly, the film is perfectly, masterfully and reasonably portrayed. When Hadfield got back from his first historically speaking spacewalk, he had no words to disclose to his significant other what he had seen. Other than it's actually as they envisioned in the film. A serious accomplishment considering the film was made before man even arrived on the moon. The film likewise utilizes making radiating power to recreate gravity by turning the worldwide space station. What's more, as per Reisman, they even got the speed right, around 1.5 revolutions per minute, which will result in around half a g equals gravitational force. Pretty much a large portion of the gravity you will feel on Earth, enough to keep the travelers and different articles pretty much set up. 1. Apollo 13, 1995, possibly the most reasonable of all the space films, says Hadfield. Apollo 13 recounts the narrative of space explorers Lovell, Hayes, and Swigert, who, during the Apollo 13 moon mission, end up abandoned when their rocket gets harmed. A few ace alerts sound and the space travelers acknowledge, "Houston, we have an issue." Hadfield himself has utilized the acclaimed line on a couple of events and says that it genuinely is the most effective sentence possible. Each and every individual who hears it promptly stops what they're doing and focuses on what the administrator will say next. This docudrama wonderfully depicts the cycle of critical thinking that occurs consistently in spaceflight. Not as significantly, fortunately, however. The rule is the equivalent. As per our specialists, Chief Ron Howard made a huge effort to guarantee the exactness of what is appeared in the film. Indeed, even the discourse during the serious scenes is basically a duplicate of NASA's records. Reisman even ventures to such an extreme as to express that it's as near a narrative as the chief could get without pulling all his hardware into space.